Battle Royale.
そこで今日は皆さんにちょっと殺し合いをしてもらいます。
Welcome to my first movie discussion / review. I'm starting this series because I've watched over 35 films that were made in Japan between the years 2000 and 2004. I'd like to review 10 picks from those films. 10 films that really spoke to me and that I find are great films, and I'm going to review them, and I'm going to make some discussion points, because many times after watching a great film I just feel like, you know, reading what other people think about it and maybe discussing it with other people who have seen the film. Unfortunately, it's rare that I find somebody who watches Japanese films, or even foreign films for that matter. Most people don't enjoy reading subtitles. I also still have to read subtitles even though I'm studying Japanese, although I do listen very closely and try to pick up what I can. Subtitles are a mixed bag. I've read some subtitles before and I thought, oh wait a minute, there's a better phrase for what he's saying there. Sometimes you can't rely on them to truthfully or accurately portray what the characters are saying. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk about our film, Battle Royale. It's like a shocker film. It's really kind of shocks you with its violence. Battle Royale is the story of a class of teenagers who are shipped off to an island to play a game. The game that they're forced to play is Survivor, essentially, except people aren't voted off, people are killed off. And the last man standing, or woman, wins, and they have to play it by the rules within a certain amount of time, you know, or else everyone dies. You can tell already, this film is pretty out there. I think a lot of people probably have heard of it or watched it simply because of this, and maybe they're attracted to the violence, attracted to this kind of action and the idea of it. But it's received acclaim for more than just blood and gore. It's actually received acclaim as being a satire as well. But there's some questions I'd like to ask before I pose my thoughts on it. Film is showing that adults have somehow become fed up with the younger generation and they're fighting with each other. The new generation in Japan are defying the adults, and as a way to control the youngster, this game is introduced by the government to sort of breed fear. There's some things that are confusing, such as an announcer that announces when people die. It almost makes you think that maybe somebody would be watching it on TV, but there are no cameras or anyone filming anything. There's no actual TV audience, so actually the audience is you, the person who's watching the film. Are you watching it? Are you enjoying it as violence? And maybe you can pose a question to yourself. Why am I watching this? What's the real reason? One of the questions I'd like to pose is, in this film we see a struggle between the adults and the new generation of kids and teenagers. Why is there a struggle? I mean, this is part of life today, is there's often struggles between generations. Is there a struggle between generations? Why is it so hard for you to get along with people that are younger than you, or people that are older than you? These are questions I'm posing to you, the viewer, and if you'd like to discuss with me. Another question I'd ask is, would you be capable of killing to survive? There's a actor in this film who's very famous. His name is Beat Takeshi. He plays the film's villain. He's a comical villain, especially in the end. I won't spoil anything for those who haven't seen it. He has some extremely hilarious parts to act out. In this film, he has difficulty relating to his daughter.
ああ、しおりか。
今どこ？ママまた具合悪いんだけど。
ちょっと出張でさ、明日まで帰れない。
別に帰ってこなくていいけど。切るね。おっさん電話でも息しないでくれる？匂いがこっちまで来て臭いから。
Why is that? And maybe keep in mind that the director is 70 years old. Why is that generation, the older generation, feeling alienated from the younger generation? Now I'm gonna, kind of give my take on those questions, what the film kind of is leading me to ask questions about. Is it a metaphor? The game in the movie, is it a metaphor for the game of real life?
人生はゲームです。みんな必死になって戦って生き残る価値のある大人になりましょう。
If you look at life, many of us play it like it's a game. We play it to win. We play it to succeed at any cost. We will try to advance ourselves even if it means hurting other people or taking things from or taking chances, opportunity. It's a cutthroat world out there, and we play it like it's a game. This kind of mentality is bred even in school. As early as kindergarten, kids can be forced to play games against each other to determine their worth, to determine how good they are. Life is a game. We're pitted against each other. We're compared to each other. And I think this film might be trying to challenge that mentality. The thing is, of course, when you're born, you aren't really aware of the game, but you grow into it because you learn from example. You learn from your parents who selfishly seek out what's best for them and their kids, and the kids learn from that and try to do the same for themselves. If this is the truth, isn't it natural that eventually the kids would also see their parents, the older generation, as a stumbling block to their success, therefore driving a wedge between young and old? It's ironic then. The game that the adults playing is the same game that the kids are playing in this movie.
履歴書だって何枚書いたかもう疲れちってなどこかけてもすぐ切られるしさあお姉さんはいお水ちょうだいお水
はい少々お待ちください
まあ何でも注文しろよ明日からお前も中学生だしさ頑張れよ頑張れったって何頑張るのか俺何も教えてやれねえけど
ご注文は
ちょっと待ってってんだろ。
It's an animalistic mode of survival, a mode that's outdated that we could live without today. So the game is almost like a metaphor. It's showing how society is telling kids to fight against each other, to rise up. And often the people who are meek, the people who aren't willing to be aggressive, the people who aren't willing to take anything, end up living very difficult lives because they are cast aside. They aren't listened to. But many of those people actually end up being the artists of the world, and you wouldn't realize it. But it's the artists of the world who are inheriting the world, who actually have a chance to change things. Unfortunately, I don't think a lot of artists realize the power that they have and end up just being skeptical rather than, actually pursuing or forcing people to question their lives. Perhaps they even become blind to the game that they've grown up part of. But not this director. I feel this director is trying to show us how gruesome it is by putting kids in a situation much like real life.
私を行かせてちょうだい。でないと私はあんたが殺したがってるとみなして全力で戦う。これは警告です。
There's a bit of a glimmer of hope, though, that this director shows us in a few characters who refuse to play the game, who refuse to kill people in order to survive. The only way to beat the game of life is simply not playing it. Stop trying to measure up to people according to their standard. Throw away everything you know. That's not what life is about. The only way to truly win is to not play at all, because life is not just a game.